We see headlines about Venezuela all the time. Politics, economics, the ongoing crisis. But what's really holding the country's social fabric together underneath all that? In this explainer, we're going to use recent social science to look past the news reports and really understand the forces of resilience at play.
So let's just start with that big question. When all the formal institutions and the economy start to wobble, what's left for people to hold on to? What are the connections, the beliefs, the strategies that actually help a community survive? That's exactly what we're going to dig into today.
The goal here is to get past the simple narratives and see the complex and frankly often surprising ways that people are adapting and finding meaning. We'll be pulling directly from social science research to piece this whole story together.
Okay, so first things first. To really get the response, we have to understand the pressure. Let's ground ourselves in the real, tangible, daily challenges that are shaping life in Venezuela right now. Just look at this number. Over 7.7 million people have left the country. I mean, that is just staggering. But this isn't just a statistic, right? It's a symptom of a much, much deeper crisis that has basically unraveled all the economic and social certainties for an entire generation. So how do people get by financially? This is where things get really interesting. You can see this amazing adaptation happening as the formal jobs just vanish. The informal economy swells up to catch people. It's this whole system of entrepreneurship born out of pure necessity. It's a lifeline that, yeah, it's unstable, but it protects millions from having no work at all. And that economic crisis, well, it just sets off a domino effect. Research shows this cascade of consequences. You see urban violence on the rise, completely reshaping daily life. Disinformation starts spreading like wildfire, often targeting the most vulnerable people. And you see human rights just systematically eroded, which of course hits the poorest communities the hardest. But, that's only half the story, because amid all of these challenges, communities aren't just sitting there passively. No way. They are actively responding, building a totally different kind of social strength, really, from the ground up. So there's this really important idea you gotta know about social participation. This is not about waiting for help to arrive. This is about people taking an active role themselves. We're talking about everything from getting involved in social housing programs to creating grassroots initiatives just to solve local problems. And this slide, man, it just perfectly lays out this huge tension. On the one hand, you have these state-imposed structures, like the government-run communes, the comunas, that are all about top-down control. But on the other hand, you see this explosion of independent, community-led initiatives, people organizing themselves to make their lives better, a lot of the time in direct response to the state not being there for them. Now, when things get uncertain, people also find resilience in belief. And this is fascinating. One study found that in some urban neighborhoods, the late President Hugo Chavez has been elevated to an almost sacred figure. People will literally appeal to his image for help with everyday problems, anything from health issues during the pandemic to personal struggles. And it's not just political figures either. The indigenous spiritual tradition around a figure named Maria Lianza is also seeing this huge renewal. The debates around her statue aren't just about art. They represent this powerful search for spiritual leadership and a whole reevaluation of what the nation's cultural heritage even is. The social fabric we're talking about is also woven with threads from other places. Take the Canarian migrant community. Since the 1940s, they've built these incredible transnational networks, creating this flow of skills, money, and ideas between Venezuela and Spain that has carved out a really unique and resilient role for them inside the country. So you might be asking, where does all this come from? Well, none of this is happening in a vacuum. To really get what's happening now, we need to look at how these deep historical currents are still shaping the social landscape today. This timeline really helps connect the dots. The legacy of slavery from centuries ago, it still influences regional culture. Those waves of migration in the 20th century completely redefined national identity. And even today, research shows how a colonial legacy can hang around in everything from how a business is run to biases within the education system. The physical changes to the country, they've had these massive social consequences. There's this one quote from a study that just hits so hard. It talks about how rapid, kind of chaotic urban growth has basically severed the connection that so many people have to their own local history and their environment, creating this deep sense of displacement. All right, so let's pull all these threads together. What does this all mean? Well, it means we're looking at a nation that is actively redefining itself in real time. being forged in this intense crucible of crisis and resilience.
This table, right here, this is really the heart of it. It perfectly summarizes the core dynamic we've been exploring. For every single immense challenge, a corresponding social response rises up to meet it. Economic collapse, met with informal entrepreneurship. State failure, answered with community self-organization. The erosion of rights, countered by social activism. And a loss of historical connection, met with this powerful renewal of spiritual and cultural traditions.
And all of that leaves us with one final vital question. This intense period of pressure, it's not just a moment of survival, it's a moment of creation. That social fabric is being rewoven every single day with these threads of resilience, faith, and community action. The identity that's emerging from this crisis is complex, it's contested, and it's still being written. The real question is, what will it ultimately become?